You right there watching this video, you need to become a building scientist right now. I don't care what your career is in right now, go learn building science and become a building scientist. But in all seriousness, guys, this video goes out to any architects out there or any junior architects, any designers who want to build or design buildings in the future. um, that's one tip that I offer you that really nobody told me when I first got into the career, and that is learn building science. I'm not kidding about that. The first time that I ever heard that term, building science, it was many years ago, and in my mind, I thought of it like engineering, which I consider to be a lot of math, a lot of physics, and no design, right? So it just sounded like boring to me, and I've never really been great at math or physics myself. I really enjoy physics, but never was good at those concepts. And so I struggled a lot, and naturally I wanted to be more on the aesthetic side, more on the art side, and that's why I chose architecture. Now this is a problem, and I'm willing to bet that most of you guys that are watching this video right now would think the same or have the same thought, that building science is something that's very complicated and very boring. And to be fair, the word itself, building science, it does sound boring as hell. And even to this day, it doesn't really excite me that much when I think about the word building science. But the truth is that it's actually something very exciting, something that you're going to learn about regardless, but it's better if you build a strong foundation from the get-go. Now, as always, I don't like to just say things, give advice, and leave it there. I like to create actionable steps for you guys to follow along, because I like to give advice to you guys the same way that I wish advice would have been presented to me. So let's talk about what are actionable steps that you guys can take to learn building science, whether you're just starting out, right? Maybe you're just starting school, or maybe you are actually a seasoned designer and you've been doing architecture for a few years. Maybe you're an architect right now, and I'm going to give you some advice, right? And I welcome advice from everybody as well on this channel. So the first thing that I recommend is Matt Reisinger's videos on YouTube. I mentioned this a few times in previous videos. This is a YouTube channel that blows my mind, because although he has, I want to say somewhere like 1 point something million views, this dude doesn't get nearly the amount of, or I said views, but the 1.2 or 1.18 million subscribers or something. This dude doesn't get the amount of views per video that he should be getting, right? I just watched a video a few hours ago by him that had like something like 8,000 or 10,000 views, and it was a few months old already. And this is just so mind-blowing to me, because I'm willing to bet that it has to do with YouTube's algorithm and the way they push out videos, because I'm telling you that most of his videos offer so much information that if you're not watching his content, you're missing out on a lot of it. And the way that he presents these topics, it makes it like really exciting, right? Like I get excited sometimes when I'll see something like, I just monopoly framed this house, and I'm like, oh crap, let's go look at that, let's see what he did. Or like, three inexpensive details that you can do on your next project, right? Things like this are very exciting to me, and I feel like everybody should be watching these videos if you have even the slightest interest in architecture and in design. So that's the first thing that you could do if you're not doing that. Now, the second thing that you can do, right? Obviously, books. Reference books are really good to have. This is more for you newbies out there, but it's also for any of you guys out there that you just don't know what new books to get. The first one is Building Construction Illustrated. And that book is essentially what it sounds like. They're basically taking common practice way of putting things together on the field. So like foundation detailing, vapor barrier, air barriers and whatnot. And they're showing you hand drawn sketches of how these details look. But here's the best part. It doesn't only just do that. right? It doesn't only just show you the detail, it breaks it down chapter by chapter, telling you exactly why you're doing certain things the way that they're done. And it takes you through the whole building. It goes from site design all the way into the assemblies and all the way down to things like receptacles and lighting and plumbing and all that good stuff. Now, it's a great reference book to have, and it's not really dense. Like, I think the whole book is like 600 pages, if I'm not mistaken. And it doesn't really go into like so much detail as another book like MEEB, mechanical electrical something something. I forget what that book stands for, but MEEB is another great reference book, but I don't recommend it. Right? Don't confuse that as part of the two recommendations that I'm offering here, because the thing about MEEB is that it's way too dense. It's way too dense. And a lot of times, us in this field, we're not really into reading. Like the average designer, the average architect doesn't love to read that much, right? At least the majority doesn't like to read. We like a lot of pictures, we like a lot of like diagrams, the same way that we communicate our designs. We like to read that way. And so that's why I recommend the Building Construction Illustrated book. But MEEB is also a good side book to have. But I was just trying to explain that MEEB goes into way more detail, like a lot of detail, like so many sheets per topic. Whereas Building Construction Illustrated tends to go only like 2 or 3 pages per topic. And then the second book, which is very, very similar to the Building Construction Illustrated book, is called Architectural Graphic Standards. And you can, to start, if you don't have either of these to start, you can just pick whichever one. If you're a complete newbie, I would probably go with Building Construction Illustrated. But if you are somewhat more seasoned, then I'd probably go with the Graphic Standards book. But either or are great. And you'll notice if you have both of them and you kind of flip through each of them that the organization is different, but the information is very similar. Very similar information. And it's almost like one has like 400 pages, the other one has like 600. That's a total of 1,000 pages. But it's almost like you wish they just combined them into one book that had like, let's say, 750 pages. Um, but they're great books. They're great because they don't only tell you how to detail, but they tell you why you're detailing this way and what the common practice is for like certain climates and whatnot. So that's a great reference book to have. So step one is, and you could do these simultaneously, but step one would be to check out Matt Reisinger's video. And two is to pick up these reference books, or if you already have them, spend more time going through them. So the reason why I say it's important, because I started out by saying that you have to do this. This is something that's really important. And then the second thing that I told you is how to do it, right? What are these actionable steps that you can do to get a better knowledge in building science? Now I'm going to tell you like why. Why do you want to do this? I always talk about how unfortunate it is that architecture school fails us. I personally feel this way. I feel that most architecture schools tend to fail us because they don't prepare us for what actual architecture entails. It just covers the design, just covers like the aesthetics, right? But it doesn't cover buildability. And I've said this before, and a lot of you guys out there have disagreed with me. I won't even say most people, but I'm going to say a big group of you guys have commented and told me that you actually like the way that architecture school is set up and you don't want to spend more time learning about the assemblies or the building science, but you want to spend more time learning about the theory behind the design. And I respect that, definitely. I think if this is how you feel, I totally respect that about you, and I think it's a good point. The only reason why I say that building science is so important, and I wish that they spent less time teaching theory and more time teaching building science, is because if you do not know how buildings are put together, then you are probably not a good designer. You Anybody can be very talented at form finding, creating interesting forms. But if you don't know how to put them together, then you're going to rely on someone else who does. And good luck finding someone else who's good at that. Not only that, but most of a project's life is spent in the CD phase, the construction documentation phasing, and also in the CA phase, which is a construction administration phase. And if you do not know how buildings are put together, you're not going to be an asset in those two phases. So, A, knowing building science makes you a better designer. Because it allows you to understand the constraints. It's almost like saying like, oh, we shouldn't take gravity into a design, right? Because gravity is a really big constraint, and I don't like that. I don't like the fact that gravity makes me think about how I'm gonna, fight against it and deal with all the loads and now have to have columns and all this stuff. I want my building to be just one giant pane of glass. Guys, you can't do that. Like, if you don't even understand that basic concept, like how can you be a good designer? And I'm pretty sure most people would agree with me that you have to take certain constraints into account when designing. Now, one of the biggest constraints is water. Water is the reason why there's the most litigation that comes out of a home design has to do with water intrusion. It's not that the buildings are collapsing. Most houses around you are not falling. Most of them, though, are leaky. Most of them are getting water intrusion. They're getting mold. People are getting sick. It's just not good for our health. And then now we have to do insurance claims. We have to find people to fix it. Then it turns out that it was never done properly. So now you have to destroy it and redo it. What purpose is there in doing a good design, a beautiful design, poetic, so inspirational, so everything, if a few months later the building has to be torn down because it's causing safety hazards to people because of mold and because water is intruding and now everything has to be replaced? What's the beauty in that? There's, for that, just design sculptures that nobody, lives inside, nobody inhabits, and then they just look at it and they're pretty and they feel good looking at, right? At the end of the day, architects are creating habitable spaces, and those habitable spaces not only have to look and feel good, but they have to function properly, guys. And I think that having a really good understanding of building science gets you closer to that point where you're creating these designs that not only look great, but function exceptionally. So that is the power of building science, right? If you understand how buildings are put together and you understand how a climate affects a building, right? What does frost do to the foundation? How does water interact with the foundation? What happens at the head joint of a window, right? These are things that if you know about these things, you can design better because you fully understand the constraints. You know what you can get away with. It's always like music, right? Like if you think about music, before you can grab a piano and just break all the rules and create a piece of music, you have to understand the rules, guys. You can't just go in there and start hitting keys and saying like, look at this masterpiece. It's a masterpiece because you took the rules, you took the constraints, and you bent them in a way that nobody has before, or in a very unique way, a pleasant way. And the same thing functions with architecture. That's how architecture works. If you're able to understand the constraints, then you can bend the rules a little bit. You're understanding. So don't fear the constraints. Don't say, oh, I don't want to, know about waterproofing or vapor barriers because I'm a designer. I like to make beautiful buildings, right? Learning more is going to make me a worse designer. No, quite the opposite. It might make you a little bit more cautious when you design, but it'll make you a better designer. And you know what? I can prove this to you. Going back to Matt Reisinger's videos, I don't think much people know this, but if you go on his YouTube channel, by the way, I'm not sponsored by him. I'm just saying that his channel is like such a condensed version of building science, and it's fun to watch and it's like so accessible to everybody. That's why I recommend it, because there's other stuff out there that I've seen and that I've watched, and I've downloaded and read and everything, but it's either too scattered around, or there's just too much incomplete information, or it's too confusing, or it's too much at a high level. Like it's just not perfect, or it costs money. this is the most accessible, where you could just go to YouTube and you go to his videos and you can start learning today. That's why I like his channel. And whenever I find another channel that's as good or better, I'll let you guys know about it. But what I was saying is I can prove it to you how it makes you a good designer. If you go to his channel and you go under videos, right? Actually, next to videos, you click on courses. He's gonna have 3 courses, right? He's gonna have a 101, a 201, and a 301. I think that's the nomenclature. And these are basically intros into building science, right? Now, I think you should take all of the courses, to be honest with you. I mean, they're free. You just watch videos. You can listen to them while you're working, whatever. But to be 100% honest with you, I think that the first one is just like a wash. It's a lot of it is like just very generic information, and like very, very, very generic information. And it's almost like just not even worth watching. But if you have the time, I would recommend it, because I have watched it. Once you get to like the 201 course, it gets a little bit better because they go a little bit deeper into certain brands and certain actual conditions. But if you go to number 2, right, that course 201, and you go to like the first or second or third video, you'll see, or maybe even most videos, you'll see that they are grabbing houses that they've built. All right. One of the guys is an architect, his co-host, and then he's a builder. He's not an architect. You're gonna see the how cool these buildings are that these guys put together. These are awesome looking houses, but not only do they look awesome, obviously not all of them are going to be awesome, but a lot of them are awesome looking and have really cool details to them, like things that I've never even seen or worked on myself. But they all function exceptionally well. They're like passive house designs. They're very tight designs. They don't, they function well. So they're more energy efficient and whatnot, and they have a lot of benefits. So the point is, just because they're focusing on building science doesn't mean that they're making boring designs. I mean, on the contrary, if you are well educated, you could bend the rules and you can make more exciting things, and then you can take it to the limit, right? So again, just to recap on what I said, guys, building science sounds like the most boring thing on the planet. But if you watch people apply building science knowledge, like in the built environment, it's really exciting. And that's what Matt Reisinger does. And that's why I recommend that you guys watch his videos. Now, you should also have books, and there's billions of books out there, like so many books out there, but I recommend those 2. And that is Frank Ching's Building Constructions Illustrated. I also mentioned Meeb, but you don't need that one. That was like really dense. That's a very nerdy book. And hooray for you guys that enjoy that kind of stuff. And then the second or third, depending on how you're counting, is the Architectural Graphic Standards book. Okay. So I recommend you spend some time doing that, reading the book, watching the videos. And for those of you who have a little bit more time, a little bit more money, or are in a place in your career where you could sign up for a course or something like that, I recommend you guys seek that out. If you're at school, consider taking an elective. In my university, I was able to recommend an elective, like pitch an idea, and if they would approve it, I could like create my own custom class. See if you could do something like that at your university. Say like, hey, we need a building science class, and take that class. Hopefully you have someone that's exciting teaching that class, because this is a very dense topic that can be made boring. So if you guys have tried taking a class like this in the past and it has been boring, just seek out another instructor to teach you, because there's a lot of stuff in there that's really fun. And for those of you guys that are at a firm, there's a bunch of online resources that cost a ton of money, and you can probably get your firms to pay for it. So I recommend that you guys do that. Look for these courses on building science, especially if they're intro, especially if they offer any free content that you can check out before purchasing anything, to make sure that it's your vibe. And then ask your firms to pay for it, because even if you ever end up leaving that firm, you're taking all that knowledge with you guys. So this is like the best money well spent. This is better than any bonus that they can give you. And I just want to remind you guys that the benefits in learning the building science is A, it's going to make you a better designer because you're going to be more confident in your ability to design. And B, it's going to make you way more of a valuable asset, because whenever it's time to wrap these buildings up at the CD phase, whenever it's time to wrap these buildings up on site, you're going to be the guy that they're going to call. And I'm telling you guys, I've worked with so many architects in the past. A lot of people are just copying details around from building to building to building, and then they're relying on the contractors and the shop drawings to finish the gaps for them. Not everybody fully understands the concepts, guys, myself included. Okay, I can't detail to the best of my abilities at this moment in time. And so that's why I'm offering you guys this advice, so that you guys could at least take this off of the back burner and bring it up front, because this is valuable stuff, guys. So to me, this is one of the most important things that you could pay attention to right now, no matter if you're at the beginning of the career or at the end. All right, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or you want to see me talk about something specific on the next video, just let me know right down there at the big old comment box. And I will see you guys next time. Peace out.